Hello and welcome everyone, this is Rufus Shinra from the Shinra Corporation, back with a very particular Raid Shadow Legends video. Today I'm going to talk to you about the futility of resistance.
I have nothing to say to you, and I will resist you with my last ounce of strength.
Strength is irrelevant. Resistance is futile. We wish to improve ourselves.
As you probably know, there are all debuffs in this game require accuracy to land, and that accuracy is measured against resistance. This is one of the basic mechanics of Raid Shadow Legends. However, there is a particular set of champions who simply don't care, who just come, use their skill and land their debuff or their effect, no matter what the opposing resistance is. So I had the idea earlier while going through the index, and I was looking for some champions who had this kind of skills to come up with a full list, because I couldn't find any anywhere. So I said I might as well make my own and share it with you for future use or for any kind of purpose. So starting out, I will go first through two very special champions, because these ones place debuffs on themselves or on their allies, and those debuffs cannot be resisted. But starting from there, I will just move through all the other champions who actually place debuffs on the enemy, and those debuffs cannot be resisted. So some of them are conditional, and some are absolutely, they don't require any conditions. You just use the skill and it lands. So yeah, I'm assuming that many of you know about some of the champions that I'm going to talk about, but I suspect that some of them are pretty obscure and you might have known about those. So yeah, before going there, thank you very much for watching. And if you like the content that I'm putting out, please leave that subscription and leave that share. It helps a lot, as well as a comment. You know how the algorithm works, and we're trying to make it in the content creation business. Okay, so without further ado, I will jump into the list. Guptak Mossbeard, so we won't spend too much time on this guy. He places poison on your team and increases your damage output based on how many poisons were placed. And the thing about those poisons, they cannot be resisted, and they can go through immunity sets or block debuff buffs. So yeah, that's the first one. Moving on to the second one, so that we don't spend too much time on it. So moving on to the second one, Enchantress. She attacks all enemy with her A3, at the same time placing a provoke. That provoke can be resisted because it's an accuracy check. However, what cannot be resisted is the debuff that she places on herself, which is the block cooldown skills. This was put in there in order to make her a little bit fallible, not to make her too overpowered. Alright, so these were the two that were placing debuffs on themselves. Now we will move on to the real thing with champions that place debuffs onto the other team. Next one is Delver. I must say that I've never paid attention to her until doing the research today. So Delver attacks one enemy, places 25% weaken debuff on the target for 3 turns if the target has heal reduction debuff. This debuff cannot be resisted. So here we're talking about conditional debuffs. So as a precondition, the enemy needs to have heal reduction first, but if they do have heal reduction, no matter how much accuracy you have or no matter how much resistance they have, the weaken will be placed. This is good to know if you only have Delver, and if you're struggling maybe to go through a level and to place weaken, it can always help. Again, not a champion I'm a big fan of, but it's just a thing. She's one of 2 epics, I think, who have debuffs that cannot be resisted and that can be placed on the enemy. It's also an interesting thing. All of the champions that have this particular characteristic are mostly legendaries. Let's move on to the next one, Excruciator. I bet you hate her as much as I do. I don't know, because whenever she pops out of her sacred shards, I'm just shaking my head and rolling my eyes. So what she does is, once with her neck snapper attack, she attacks one enemy. The damage increases by 35% if she's under veil. If she's attacking without a veil, she will instead deplete the turn meter of the enemy and then fills her own. The turn meter depletion effect cannot be resisted. It's capped against bosses at 50%, against mobs it's 100%, but it cannot be resisted. I think this is the only champion that has a turn meter depletion that cannot be resisted. So good to keep in mind if you're struggling against bosses in faction wars, or if you simply just want to find a way to include her in your roster. Remember, this is not a guide on those champions, this is basically just a list of the champions that have irresistible debuffs. So let me know in the comment section below if you want me to do sometime a guide on any of those champions. I'll be happy to. Elder Skarg. Now moving on to the legendaries and some bigger boy stuff. Elder Skarg, one personal favorite of mine. I really love what he does on his Elder's Clarion. What he does, without any books needed, he places increased defense on himself, he places fear on all the enemies for 1 turn, and he then, depending on whatever buffs your enemy has, he will place either true fear if they're under block damage, he will place a 30% decreased speed for 2 turns if they are under shield. And all of these debuffs, no matter which one is procced depending on the buffs of the enemy, all of these debuffs are irresistible. And the good thing is that he doesn't need any books for that to happen. The books basically just decrease the cooldown, so they will land if the enemy has either block damage or decrease or shield. But at any time, we're talking about true fear, but fear will land no matter what. So this is also a good thing to know about Elder Skarg. Moving on to the next. So Mortu Macabre. Ooh, you do hate him from Nightmare campaign, I know, and here's one more reason to hate or love the guy. So on his Fallen from Grace attack, where it's an AoE, attacks all enemies and has a chance of placing block buffs. Now the block buff can be irresistible if the enemy has a block or a heal reduction already in place. AoE block buff plus some serious damage, plus him just being overall obnoxious and blazing good, makes this champion a real threat. Now, it's 90% chance of placing block buff. You need to book it, at least 2 books to put it to 100% chance, but once it reaches 100%, and if the enemy has heal reduction, it's basically irresistible. Again, not on the top of the list because we still have a few more to go through. The reason why is just it's still a little bit too conditional, and the block buffs, there are much better options, even with resistance or options that can be resisted, that can be used for this purpose. Moving on. Thea the Tomb Angel, Thea the Disappointment Angel for some. So on her A1, actually, she has 75% chance of placing a hex for 5 turns. If you book it, it becomes 100% chance. And the key sentence here is this debuff cannot be resisted. So one good thing about her is that the hex that she places, it's a guaranteed hit as long as she's booked. If she's not booked, she has 75% chance. It's just basic odds, but she does not care about resistance nor her accuracy. This is actually an interesting fact to know because when we asked Plarium about the reason why this champion is so underwhelming and not performing well, their answer was, yeah, just wait and see, there will be some content or other champions that will make use of her kit. So let's see. Personally, I'm not holding my breath, but at least there is a positive to her kit, which is this irresistible hex attack. And hex is a pretty strong debuff, as it boosts the damage significantly whenever it lands on an enemy. So yeah, that was for Thea the Tomb Angel. Crypt King Grawl. He's placed higher than Thea the Tomb Angel, but I wouldn't really say that he's better than her in any way, because his kit is a little bit all over the place. However, this attack, Elemental Unity level 1, he places a freeze debuff on each target for 1 turn if they are under an HP burn, and then extends the duration of the HP burn debuffs for 3 turns. This effect cannot be resisted, so the first condition is the enemy should have a burn debuff. If they do, the freeze will be irresistible. So this looks like they designed him to work hand in hand with champions like Tormain, for instance. But again, this is a cool attack. I always thought about trying to work it into an arena team somehow, but never actually did anything about it. So Crypt King is still sitting in my vault, but who knows? We might find a use for him soon. Moving on. Next champion, one of my favorites, my babe, my boo, Elnarel, the Spider 20 Explosion Queen, and on top of that, if you didn't know, she also has another skill that's very useful against another spider in this game. So her A1 places an HP burn for 2 turns, and this debuff cannot be resisted. Simple, effective, powerful. If you have Elnarel, if you're lucky enough to have pulled her, and if you're not using her in your spider dungeons, your regular spider 20 dungeon, she also can help you against the frost spider, because frost spider has a ton of resistance, and the passive from that boss makes it quasi impossible to land anything if you don't have extremely high accuracy. So with Elnarel, all you need to do is land an A1 on that boss, and it will put on spider, and then it will counter all sorts of passives from that boss. So yeah, little known fact. Some people knew about it, people who have her, people who use her, other people don't. I actually I only paid attention to it maybe a couple of months ago when I was trying to figure out some variation comps for the frost spider, because you use Elnarel, you tend to focus on that poison explosion, but this can slip, this can go under the radar. So yeah, Elnarel has an irresistible HP burn on her A1. Now moving on, Cupidus, another HP burn champion. So on his flame out level 1 attack, he has a 50% chance of placing an HP burn on all enemies. However, there is another condition. He needs to have killed an enemy with this attack first. So he uses the skill on an enemy. If the enemy dies, then it's an HP burn on all the enemy's allies, and the HP burn is irresistible. Again, no books needed. The books only improve the damage and as well as the cooldown, but for the HP burn to land, no calculations whatsoever. He just lands it, provided he kills an enemy. Next. And of course, who else? The king of HP burns. To conclude this segment of champions, Ignatius. You however need to give him a few books to bring that chance up to 100%, but once it reaches 100%, the debuff cannot be resisted. He will just burn enemies. People have been using him for ages against the regular spider. Of course, he shines against the nether spider, but basically anywhere you want some burn, and he can back a punch too. So Ignatius, cool champion with an irresistible burn, and probably the best burn champion. Arguably, of course, my heart says Tyrant, but the fact that his attack is irresistible makes it all the more powerful. So let's see. Tell me in the comment section, what is your favorite champion with an HP burn, irresistible or not? Baron. Again, if he's higher than the others, it's not that because I prefer him, it's just a matter of organization. So Baron has also an irresistible attack actually. So on his Split Asunder, he places a 60% decreased defense, although it's single target, but that's decreased defense is guaranteed. You don't need to go into building him with any accuracy, not that you want to, because this guy basically is there to do damage. So if it lands, it has a chance of unlocking Sky Piercer, which is his best skill, arguably one of the best damaging skills in the game. But again, his decreased defense is irresistible. Next one. Sir Nicholas, on top of bringing us joy on Christmas and tears whenever a champion training tournament comes out, the Sir Nicholas also has an irresistible attack on his A1. He can freeze. Whoever he hits, he freezes. He doesn't need books to do it, and he does a ton of damage in addition to it. So yeah, a way to make something broken even more broken. Astroleth. Now, this girl used to be really bad. She's still bad, but not as bad as before. At least now, on her Heart Rot, she can place 2 bombs that detonate after 1 turn, and this debuff cannot be resisted. So many people have been theory crafting about ways to use her with a Vizier or with the new Barbarian Epic, I can't remember her name, who also spreads debuffs. So yeah, this is one of those champions who does that, and all I can say is that the meta in Arena might change in the future with the introduction of some new accessories. And if you have an Astrolith, you might be happy of having one, actually. You might be happy of having such a good bomb champion in your roster. I might be completely wrong, the meta might not change by an iota, but still, this is something that you can make use of in case you didn't know. Rashguard the Tower. Yes, Rashguard the Tower. On his A2 sanction, he attacks one enemy and places a block cooldown skill and a block buffs for 2 turns, and these debuffs cannot be resisted. People who play in Arena, in Silver, in Bronze, even in Gold 1, 2, 3, often encounter Rashguard the Towers, but not that much. We don't see him that much in Platinum or in High Gold 4. However, if you think about it, using this specific skill and having Rashguard build with the proper speed, all he needs is speed, he doesn't need accuracy. If you could outspeed the enemy team, or have him or cut through their rotation before, for example, a Duchess or one of those champions that are annoying and place lots of buffs on their team goes, you could basically lock them out of the fight with a hit from his glorious hammer. So yeah, it's something just to keep in mind, because Rashguard has more tricks up his bag other than just building block damage or unkillable clan boss team. So yeah, keep this guy in mind. Moving on. Necrot the Great, and he's even greater because he's A1. On top, he places a 50% decrease attack, and that's also irresistible. The chance is low without books, it's 20%. It can be booked up to 30%, but also it's something that I thought that was worthy of note, because this guy does a lot on the rest of his kit. I think I ranked him higher than the others because he's such a good champion with his overall kit and his overall utility, and on top of that he has an irresistible debuff. So this reminds me of another champion who's also void, who's also very difficult to get for people who don't spend a ton of money on shards, who also has an irresistible debuff on his A1. Her, you know who I'm talking about, of course, Sifi the Lost Bride. Yeah, we all know about her A1. It has by default an 80% chance of placing a sleep. That chance can go to 100 when booked, and it's irresistible provided the enemy's turn meter is above 50%. As if she didn't do enough already. This makes her, let's say, more than the broken. This goes above and beyond the brokenness thresholds that we know about any other champion in this game. So I don't know. If there was anything to be nerfed about Sifi, it would be this. But again, if I pull her, don't nerf her, she will be completely balanced and she will be completely good. But now that I don't have her, please nerf this attack and make it maybe 50%, or yeah, she doesn't care about accuracy. Well, that's Sifi. Moving on, one that is not always mentioned, or one that you don't always think about when you're thinking about irresistible debuffs, and talking about this girl, Lisandra. Lisandra, one of the best, if not arguably the number one turn meter manipulator in the game. She also happens to have an irresistible attack. Yeah, it's not mentioned explicitly in the text, but her A1 has a special propriety. Of course, you know where she will transfer the debuffs from herself to an enemy. For instance, say she has decrease attack, decrease speed, something like poison or whatever. If she hits an enemy with her A1, all those poisons will transfer from herself to the enemy. The thing that you might have not known is that she doesn't care about accuracy. Even if you run Lisandra with 0 accuracy, those debuffs will still be transferred to the enemy and they cannot be blocked, they cannot be resisted. Of course, they can be if the enemy is under an immunity set. This goes for all of what we've talked about so far. But yeah, Lisandra can do just that. And we're getting close to the end. This is the second to last champion that I'm going to talk about, and it's Suzerain Katan. You might have heard about his ability because it didn't mention that it was irresistible before. Now it does. So on his Banish from Time attack, he basically just removes shield, block damage, and unkillable from all enemies, then attacks them and places a 100% heal reduction. and it cannot be resisted, it cannot be blocked. So if you go in the arena, you find yourself in front of a heavy shield team, a heavy block damage team, maybe, well, that's not that frequent, but still heavy shield team, you just bring in your Suzerain Katan, provided he gets a turn, he uses this attack, the shield is gone, poof, nothing to worry about, and you can proceed to nuke the hell out of these guys. So the thing is, the 100% heal reduction could pair nicely with the Mortar Macabre, because he then will come in and place a block debuffs or a block buffs, and that too will be irresistible. So lots of things to think about. People know about this champion, have known about him, and have been using him occasionally in their arena offenses, but yeah, in case you didn't know, here it is. And I think now we just have one last champion to go with, of course, who other than the magnificent Peck boy Ghostborn. He attacks all enemies on his A3, has a 75% chance of placing 60% increased defense. That chance can go up to 100%, and the debuff cannot be resisted. At the same time, he also places a 50% increased attack on all the allies. But again, great champion for arena, great champion for spider farming, for any dungeon that is not affinity adverse to spirit. He was actually the poster boy for debuffs that cannot be resisted for a long time. But yeah, so this concludes today's list. I hope that you found some useful information in it. Tell me in the comment section below if you knew about these champions, if you're using any of them, or if I missed any champion that has debuffs that cannot be resisted, because as far as I know, these are the only ones that are available at the moment. But again, I'm not infallible, I might have overlooked anything. Big shout out to Origin MD from the moderator chat, who also helped me fill in the blanks, because my list was a little bit shorter before. And thank you, of course, to everyone who's watching. Again, remember to leave a comment down below, and subscription if you're not, because plenty of you are still not subscribed. We're getting close to that 1,000 subscribers goal, and yeah, I'll be bringing you some more news and some more videos pretty soon. And until I see you, this is Rufus Shinra, and I'm signing out.